Let's put an intro in.
Hello to all you Nope, they're not podcasts.
Podcast listeners? No?
One more time. Hello to all you Patriots out there in podcast land, and welcome to episode 113 of Canadian Patriot Podcast, the number one podcast in Canada. We're recording on Monday, January 1st, 2018. Gavin?
I'm
Okay, I
glad we
guess
went to
Gavin's
reading our
not
own
here.
intros. It makes it so much more efficient.
I think he's frozen. Matt, why don't you tell everyone who you are?
All right, I'm Matt, a sports shooter in Southern Ontario here.
I'm Marty, hunter and sports shooter in rural Southern Ontario. And we lost
As
Matt.
always, my name is...
So Andrew, tell us about yourself.
Well, my name is Andrew. I like long walks to the beer fridge, and I don't live in an igloo. I don't know. Back. I guess that puts me on with reading the we want your feedback about the show. So if you visit CanadianPatriotPodcast.com/feedback, or you can email us at feedback@CanadianPatriotPodcast.com. And if you want to leave a 5-star review on iTunes, that would be super helpful because the iTunes engine is a big thing for helping new listeners find the show.
All right, and as always, you can check out the podcast at facebook.com/Canadian Patriot Podcast or Instagram at instagram.com/Canadian Patriot Podcast.
We need your help to support the show. You visit patreon.com/CPP and become a Patreon today. For just one loony an episode, you get the uncensored, high-quality version of the show, and the more you pledge, the better the rewards are. Is Gavin back for real? I feel like Gavin's still frozen.
No, so go ahead and do the thingy.
The Thingy! Arrowhead Coffee is owned and operated by Canadian Armed Forces veterans. They love our country, the true north, strong and free, their family and friends. Join Arrowhead Coffee on their hunt for the perfect brew to raise morale and bring that feeling of home to you no matter where you are. A portion of all profits helps Canadian Armed Forces members, veterans, and their families. And like we're doing every week now, Arrowhead Coffee is bringing us What Are We Drinking? That's where I ask, what are you drinking? Gavin, I'm assuming, is having a frozen cocktail of some variety because he's still frozen. Marty, what are you drinking?
Tonight I'm drinking Goose Island Honkers Ale.
Solid. How are you liking that? Great chat. Matt, what are you drinking?
I'm just having Coors Banquet tonight.
All right. Gavin, are you there?
I am here now. Can you hear me now?
Yes. What are you drinking?
I'm having a low tea beverage, much like my internet access this evening, and I am just having a chai tea.
All right. News. First story is follow-up from a previous story that we've talked about on more than one occasion.
It's kind of a recurring trend for this show, I think.
It is too cold for the 150 Canada hockey rink at Parliament Hill to be used. It is in fact so cold that the ice is cracked and is not useful for skating for competitive hockey. Although they're still using it for the semi-public skates where you're not allowed to play hockey or use your phone or engage in multiplayer sports or basically do anything
Fun.
that could be even remotely fun.
Sounds about right.
So,
I mean, who knew that?
I'm so glad that we spent millions of dollars on this stupid. I'm so glad we spent $6 million on this stupid rink.
So I'm under the impression that even the public skating was canceled based on the iPolitics article. It did say with a negative 38 wind chill in the forecast night, there's still no plans to let people take to the ice until the hill warms up.
Okay, yeah, that's right. So there was two different things going on. There's an organized hockey match that's going to cost us a better part, well, nearly $1 million to have 32 minor hockey teams from all over the country come and visit to have a tournament. When the hockey tournament was not going on, they were still planning to have semi-public skating. It's not public skating because you had to like do the whole register in advance for your like specific 30-minute time slot where you were allowed to use the rink. That was canceled at one point. I believe the entirety of the hockey tournament was relocated to a different indoor venue. You know, one where the ice works when it's below freezing.
Yeah,
thoroughly confused by how this works. I mean, I'm not a but I think that frozen water shouldn't be that hard.
Yeah, you would think
It's
that
science
being
joke.
cold
It's
is the
frozen
only
water.
thing
I'll
you
talk
need.
about the hockey side of things first. Is as someone who grew up playing hockey, and always talking that there definitely is a point where it's just too cold. And we would hit arenas where certain arenas were extremely cold, and it was noticeable. I definitely understand a point where it's too cold to have these kids play on this ice, regardless of what they spent $5.6 million to do it here, or if they had spent nothing to do it the actual, heritage site. Like, there just hits a point where it's just too cold.
Right, and I can totally understand and appreciate that no one wants to play hockey when it's minus 32, because that doesn't make for a good time.
Yeah.
What I don't understand is
that.
the ice
the
cracking
the ice
and
not working in freezing weather is the part that baffles me.
Yeah. But is anyone surprised?
That one is interesting. I mean, considering that somewhere around $1 million of the $5.6 million price tag went to designing the cooling system and designing this rink to be placed on this. Essentially, there was $1 million of the budget to the engineering of this rink. The fact that it has failed miserably, I don't understand. Like, where is the accountability? Where is the refund of this?
Yeah, I don't think we're getting a refund.
No, I mean, maybe it's just my tinfoil hat, but like maybe this was the plan from the get-go, right? Like they pocket more money because they made the rink with shoddy materials. And then, when it comes time to actually use it and it breaks, they just go, oh, well, too bad. Carry on.
I mean, this is just symptomatic of, issues.
Government?
Where is the accountability? Like, they completely wasted dollars here. It hasn't delivered on what they promised. Accountability. Who was at fault for this? Where is, the kind of where is somebody fired over this?
Is the company not owned by Morneau?
Yeah, because because of the politics beside it, taxpayer money with zero accountability. Nobody is reprimanded for this, and they continue to move on and do it again.
Well, yeah, but that's the way our government operates. That's not skating rink specific. This is just the waste of our federal government.
Yeah.
Also, I like the caption for the photo in the iPolitics of just a nearly complete hockey rink sits on the lawn at Parliament Hill.
There was some way to keep the frozen water frozen so that you could skate on it. Then it would be a complete hockey rink.
Yeah.
Terrible. All right, let's do another one. We've got an apology from Justin Trudeau regarding his and his family's visits to Aga Khan's private island in the Caribbean. The Prime Minister has been found in violations of ethics laws and has apologized for this. Just want to reiterate that the Prime Minister broke a law and has apologized for this. Apparently, that's satisfactory.
He didn't know, like, and he's super, super sorry.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
to be clear, the ethics laws are not laws. They're guidelines.
they're only guidelines. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Let's see just how sorry Justin Trudeau is.
Have occurred to you, with all due respect. You were going to take a free holiday from someone you consider a friend, but obviously you have a different definition of a friend than the commissioner. You knew that they had a lobbying registry, that they were set up to lobby the government. How could it not have occurred to you that that might not have been okay?
The fact is, we work sorry, let me just try to reorder the thoughts. We worked with the lobby conflict of interest
lobbyists
on a regular basis on a broad range of issues when the issues come up. On this issue of a family vacation with a personal friend, it wasn't considered that there would be an issue there.
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and call BS because the head of a religious group who lobbies our government is not a close personal friend. A close personal friend would be someone that you interact with on a regular basis. The last time that Aga Khan and Justin Trudeau interacted was at his dad's funeral. No contact for 30 years until he got into a prominent position in our government and started receiving free trips.
That's totally what friends
do. It seems very reasonable to me how the ethics commissioner arrived at the conclusion that this was in violation of ethics laws and that this was not a gift from a close personal friend, but that it would be reasonable to infer that this gift could impact the Prime Minister's judgment in some way, since he was receiving, substantial, call it a product of substantial value from someone who's lobbying the government.
There was a lot of interesting things that came out of the Ethics Commissioner report. And one of the things that I found particularly interesting was that, Trudeau's sort of interpretation of how this was not a conflict of interest, the fact that Aga Khan was, trying to advise and have meetings with the Prime Minister over this trip and discuss, items. And his reasoning, but why that wasn't a conflict of interest was because, essentially him as the Prime Minister, he's just a figurehead. He's just there to associate deals. So him being present for these kind of discussions isn't a conflict of interest because he doesn't really have any say in those kind of day-to-day negotiations type of thing. And it was really sort of to how he sort of sees himself, that, he sees himself clearly as someone who's not involved in any sort of decision making, as in any type of policy making, and he sees himself as purely the mascot kind of thing, just there to shake hands and smiles and take photos, and then somebody else will actually have the in-depth discussions. So him having discussion with the icon doesn't really mean anything, and that was sort of of it, and that's very, I think, indicative of how he sees his role as Prime Minister and likely how he's running his government.
I mean, it's worrying, but it's not really surprising. We know that the only decision that he's allowed to make is what color socks he wears.
Even that he's not very good.
Yeah, I mean,
but we know
it's up to
he said that in that egregious. No, I know. I'm not shocked by this because we know he's not the person making decisions. He is a figurehead, but the same time, he is, at least in theory, the head of the country. So accepting bribes from foreign agents who have political lobbies in our country is maybe not the best decision. And maybe the Prime Minister's office should be like, hey, don't do stupid things that make everyone look stupid.
Yeah, but you gotta think
that
in his
handlers are gonna have a
defense.
better.
I mean, but like in his defense, he's saying, "I'm just a figurehead. I don't have any say in the decision making. So therefore, lobbying me is useless. So therefore, it's not a conflict of interest." Which was his argument on this. Which is, I mean, it's laughable, but there's something there to it, really. He's come out and saying, like, well, I'm just useless. Like, it's not a conflict of interest for them to lobby me because I don't have any say in the politics.
He's just there for photo ops.
Yeah,
and like he's coming out and saying that. Now,
Yeah.
it begs the question, though, of like, who is in charge? So if he's saying he's not, who is?
Well, I've got some theories about that, but they're not for discussion amongst a polite company.
You need a Soros drop.
Yeah, I do need a George Soros drop. So that'd be really the global.
Be like
Do I have
evil laughing
drop?
We need an Alex Jones yelling about Soros. That's what we need as the drop.
What do you think tap water is? It's a gay bomb, baby.
So that's the only Alex Jones drop that I have handy. But you're right, I do need an Alex Jones drop yelling about the globalists.
Yeah, but I mean, like, all joking aside, though, it is him, like I said, like, we all obviously assume that, kind of always assumed that, like, he thought he was in charge, but in reality, like, he had no say. Like, you know, they put him in the corner and gave him something shiny to play with, while the grown-ups made decisions.
No, so it's like when he goes to a summit.
Yeah. But like, it's interesting to hear him say that in his defense, be like, well, no, I don't, I sit in a corner with something shiny. Fully cognizant of the fact that he, really has no say in what goes on day to day, and he's really of his own party, and it's being run outside of his sort of direction.
I guess we see if it comes back in the news. Let's talk guns. I've got a gun one for everybody. The
1911.
Tracy, 1911. I love 1911s. I hear 9mm 1911 is the way to go these days.
It is the way to go these days. You want to be competitive.
I was looking forward to seeing it the other morning, but apparently somebody forgot that we had a little 3-gun tournament.
So I totally forgot about it.
That's fine. So I've got an article on CBC Radio where a friend of the show, Tracy Wilson, does an interview. Tracy Wilson is the Vice President of Communications for the Canadian Coalition for Firearms Rights. Without going into the 10 minutes of audio, because Tracy does do a good interview and is more than welcome to come back on the show anytime she can fit us into her busy schedule. It would appear that the media and or government is posturing for new restrictions for the gun control in Canada. Nothing is on the books yet, but we know that there is something in the Liberal Party platform that they want to tighten restrictions on assault weapons in our country. Obviously, anyone who has a firearms license knows that you can't own assault weapons because those are prohibited.
But I mean, now that they've crossed off legalizing pot off their to-do list, so now they're moving to the next one. So.
Right. The legalizing pot was the hardest, and then fixing the gun problem is the next thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this was a good interview by. This is a good interview by Tracy. She, kind of points that firearms owners have, and the fact that what the liberals are calling assault weapons aren't assault weapons. You know, that we don't have assault weapons, that they're, you know, functionally the same as any other semi-auto hunting rifle. She hit all these things. I just I just question how effective facts are these days. Like, it seems like use facts for years now, and that doesn't get us anywhere.
They're not, but we don't have. I shouldn't say that. I should find a better way to phrase that. People on, call it the right, conservatives, people who own firearms generally, we don't have an emotional argument to make in our own self-interest, because there is no emotional argument from the position of a person who legally owns firearms, because you've gone through all of the legal hurdles. It's not about how dangerous and scary it is, and it's not about using it in the commission of crimes. But for the people on the left and the anti-gun lobbies, it's all about rhetoric, because it's scary and they want to take it away and make society a safe place for everyone. Which, while that is an admirable goal, is a very flawed way to look at reality.
Yeah. Now, I question this, though, like, you know, can that lesson be learned the sort of the conservative side of things when it comes to other aspects? Like, for example, like the budget, we can logically talk about the deficit and, you know, how increasing deficit negative to our society and our economy, but it doesn't get us anywhere. At the same time, you know, if we start talking about the current government, you know, hate children so much, you know, willing to saddle them with this debt in futures in such a way, you know, play the same sort of cards against them in other areas.
But the right doesn't make the emotional argument that way. And if you make that argument as someone on the right, the left will just tell you that you're being hysterical and they won't take your argument seriously. The same way that they don't take the argument with facts seriously. Because the left doesn't argue. They don't present a point of view that's grounded in reality and based on measurable phenomenon. They base their political policies on knee-jerk reactions to how they feel. You can't argue with people that base their policies on feelings.
What if I feel they're incorrect?
It doesn't matter. The left won't take you seriously as a person on the right.
What if them taking away my guns makes me feel upset and I cry?
Doesn't matter. You're on the right. Like,
what if I feel that's racism? In any way whatsoever, but like if I feel that it's racism,
it's not. But I think that this is the road that
it's discriminatory against the Dutch, obviously.
Well, let's call our side the alt realists. It would be beneficial for us to come up with a way to manipulate the language so that when a conservative tries to manipulate language, generally it's very obtuse and it presents that way to the left, and they see through it. And they realize that they can't win the argument on facts and logic, and they can win the argument by screaming about feelings. And if somebody on the right does it, they don't do it in an effective way as to make the person on the left empathetic to their point of view. Could make the argument
on the right is less than a person, and so their feelings don't matter.
Their feelings don't matter. That's exactly the problem. If you could use a leftist argument, and I don't mean an argument in the form like the way that a leftist use it. I mean, you would literally need like copy pasta a leftist argument and replace it with the thing that you want. So it's racist for them to deprive you of guns, but you would have to be a visible minority, a person of color, to be able to make that argument and have a leftist agree with you. So if you could get a black guy from Toronto to do this, right? Like if like Colin Noir is the NRA spokes guy from
and any black guy that like reality based facts is not a real black guy.
Right. They're like Uncle Tom's, and they're not taken seriously by the left because the left has this perception that if things are not the way that they believe them to be, then you're intentionally trying to mislead them or lying to them, and you're not no true Scotsman, right? Everything is a logical fallacy.
Yeah.
So I think that if you could find a way to
is also Paul Noir.
well, yeah, but if you could find a way to copy past a leftist argument and just replace like the word gun, then you would trick enough of them into following your line of logic that they would be agreeable to it. But the average person on the right can't do that. Right? Like the average gun owner
like a similar example is from like, let's say the US side of things is, any female, in politics needs to be, revered, and, we need to get a female involved in politics, unless, let's say example, it's from the conservative side of things where it's Sarah Palin. She's every negative name you can throw against a woman. She's a whore, and she's just in it, all kinds of, like, they throw everything against her, and she's because she's not,
because it doesn't fit their version of reality, right?
Yeah.
It's I don't know that I do want to address a couple specific things that were brought up in the interview by the CBC radio guy, the talking CBC voice. I don't know who it was. Mark something.
The government talking head.
The government talking head. There was an argument that was posed that comes from an anti-gun talking point. And it's the anti-firearms lobbyist saying that there are too many guns, too many dangerous guns, and it's too easy to get guns. And my compliments to Tracy on her responses to those, because again, people that own guns and have gone through the process to legally acquire guns and hold firearms licenses know that guns are guns are guns, and there isn't one that is more dangerous or another, and guns are not easy to get in Canada. I mean, unless you feel like investing days worth of your time and hundreds to thousands of dollars to legally go through the process, I wouldn't call that easy, because it doesn't strike me as a particularly easy thing. Like, to me, easy is going to the grocery store and buying my groceries, not going through weekends of training and then background checks and paying fees and then more waiting and then being put through daily continuous eligibility screening.
I would say one thing that I've noticed specifically amongst anti-gunners is I have a few of them in the office that I work at, a lack of understanding as the expense. Like, they believe that, firearms owners are, low income, low, like essentially low class type of people. They don't understand that, like, sort of the expense and the fortitude that's involved to actually go through, get your license, and that not as accessible as what people think. They don't, it's not just anybody that goes out and gets their license. You have to actually spend the time, take the course, spend the money, and then firearms and ammunition and accessories, and that it's a large expense. It's not a cheap hobby. It's not something that, you have to have the sort of free cash available to partake in this hobby.
Yeah, I mean, I just picked up
yes and
an
no.
antique, and I mean, it cost me a pretty penny, but in my mind, well worth it, because now I have a piece of history.
Yeah.
Okay, so
A functional
yes,
piece.
both of those are valid, but to the point of the normal non-firearms owning Canadian, somebody who doesn't have guns, didn't grow up around guns, doesn't have a firearms license, hasn't gone through that. Marty, you're a competitive sports shooter. You spend a lot of time and energy on being good at a sport. Gavin collects historical firearms. Again, collecting historic things, not cheap. You could be the kind of guy that goes out and buys a $300 deer rifle and once a year goes out and shoots a deer, and that's a gun owner. And being honest, some of those are low-class people. Man. I'm not saying you're wrong, but I mean, there's a difference between what you and I spend in, thousands of rounds a year in training and matches, or what Gavin spends for very nice World War II rifles. versus some guy that goes and buys a $300 Savage to go shoot a deer once a year.
You know,
They still
okay,
have to spend
I'm
the
not,
weekend.
you
They
know,
still have to spend the $100 to get their license. But you could get into the firearms for, say, $1,000.
Yeah.
even still, even though you look at the guy that does, and he does hunting only, and you know he goes out and he shoots his one deer a year. He's you know he stands. He's likely buying some sort of calls or rattlers. He's buying his scent lock. Clothing. He's like there's do in firearms. Especially you look at the guys that are waterfowl hunting, especially the guys that field hunt. They try and go out and buy 100 geese field decoys at like $20 a pop. What you do in this sport, honestly, it's relatively expensive. Yes, there are certain ways you can get in it at an entry level, but even at the entry level price, it's not super cheap. Like you have to have some free cash to be able to pretty well anything.
For sure, you do. But
it adds up. It adds up. No matter what you do, it adds up.
It does, and I'm not arguing that. But I am unfortunately aware of a large number of casual firearms owners who own one or two guns that they do not shoot them on a regular basis. They might shoot them once annually. They might shoot it at a deer. And if they do, they're not the kind of people to invest in a lot of going out and baiting a site and buying a tree stand. They're going to go stand on the edge of a field and shoot the first thing that walks by and call it close enough, whether they hit it or not. Unfortunately, those people are out there.
Yeah, my father is one of those, only he doesn't do the whole going out and shooting it once a year. He kind of just owns them and keeps them in his closet and maybe goes out a couple of times a year to the range with me. But he's exactly that guy you're talking about.
So, anyway, let's go on to the next thing. We've got an Ottawa man that got a $52 ticket for leaving his car unlocked in Quebec because to leave your property unlocked. Also, his $55 ticket or $59 ticket, $52 ticket. Turned into an $89 ticket after all of the associated fees to pay it. So this is...
Well, I mean, I guess it's a good thing because, hopefully when he left his car door unlocked, someone came in and stole his CNC Music Factory CD so that he didn't get a ticket for singing in his car, which I think was more money than the one for leaving your door unlocked. So really, he saved money at the end of the day.
But now he doesn't have music, so he has to sing.
Ooh, true. It's so ridiculous.
This to me kind of aligns perfectly with our previous article. So, as a lot of people are aware, specifically Montreal, but lots of areas of Quebec, vehicle theft is relatively rampant. Obviously, in Quebec, instead of targeting those that are stealing vehicles, you must lock your vehicle because you got to do something, and so you target the law-abiding. Well, actually,
I think Marty is breaking up, but the gist of it is that we're targeting law-abiding people because it's easier to target people who generally abide by laws and pay their fines than targeting actual criminals, which somehow I don't think Quebec is running low on actual criminals, but they're probably a lot harder to catch than people that leave their cars unlocked when they go to eat at a steakhouse.
Yeah. I mean, where's the incentive for cops to do real work now when they could just walk through the mall parking lot and try car doors and hand out tickets?
Well, okay, yeah. So for this example, the article came out on the 20th of December of 2017, and in Gatineau, police had issued 467 tickets for unlocked cars. In 2016, they'd issued a total of 517. there are police officers literally walking around checking to see if cars are locked. Because I guess actual policing is too hard.
Yeah, there's no other criminals out there that they could at least try to catch.
No, I think there's lots of actual criminals out there that they could try to catch. But this is a much easier way to get, they get $100 a pop every time they write one of these tickets, or $89, right?
Yeah.
$52 on the ticket, and then whatever the rest of the fees are to work out to the $89. So $89 every time they find a car that doesn't have the doors locked, because they're somehow managing to violate the highway safety code, which I really don't understand why this is a part of the highway safety code. And I think it's a poor interpretation of it, because the way that it's written says that no person may leave unattended a road vehicle that is in his custody without previously removing the ignition and locking the doors, which I see what they're trying to do, because it's to discourage unauthorized users from accessing and using the vehicle, right?
Yeah. So you take the keys with you so they can't turn it on.
Take the keys with you. There shouldn't be any requirement to lock the doors, because okay, so if I have my car, I live in Gatineau. I would never live in Gatineau, but let's pretend I lived in Gatineau, and I parked my truck in my garage, and I left the keys in the ignition. I'm in violation of the highway safety code. But the vehicle is in my locked garage. So who cares? Because it's in my locked garage.
What if your garage is unlocked?
If I go and park it on the street, well, that's the next point. So instead of leaving it in the garage, if I leave it on the street, if I take the keys with me, who cares? If I want to let my vehicle be open and people come and take my change tray out of my console, or whatever, Mike and the boys come and decide to turn it into a fuck shack, that's my problem, and it's going to suck for me. But why does the government need to make that a law?
Yeah. Well, what if? I mean, I have a Jeep. I can take my doors off. What if I just take the door off? Or a convertible that's parked that doesn't have the roof up.
I like this state from Carrier, who's the we're discussing here. State. Next time I visit, I will lock the doors, but leave the windows rolled down. That is not technically illegal.
Right, and that's what this is silly. The government shouldn't be fining people who don't lock their vehicles' doors, because this is just a poor interpretation of the highway safety code.
Yeah. It has nothing to do with highway safety at all, whatsoever.
It has nothing to do with anything. It's private property. Fuck off. Leave people's private property alone. If you want to leave a car unlocked for Dirty Mike and the boys, that's on you. There shouldn't be no $90 fine for it.
No, but you should probably charge those guys at least that much to use it. I mean, that's a reasonable price.
Again, private property. That's up to you.
Yeah.
I think it's at least.
All right, let's do another vehicle one. Sorry, say that again, Matt.
I think it's at least $200 a pop, just like the government.
Yeah.
All right, let's do another vehicle one. This time we're going to go to Alberta. Police are being given new authority in how they charge drunk drivers.
Wait, hold on. Are we even supposed to talk about stuff that happens in Alberta? I thought that wasn't part of Canada anymore.
I like to pretend Alberta is still part of Canada, but I liked it better under the last provincial government.
Only drama teachers can change the map.
So, as part of changes to the Highway Traffic Act in Alberta, police officers are being given discretion in whether or not they criminally charge drivers who are found to be over the legal limit. I'm a little conflicted about this because there are pros and cons, but I think there are more cons than anything else. Giving police officers the ability to decide how a law is enforced, in my opinion, undermines every Canadian's rights and freedoms.
Yeah, they should
The
be
fact that
fair across the board for everyone. That's the point.
what I also don't like that the policing authority is the ones that are choosing how the rules are enforced. They shouldn't be able to make up the rules, because then you end up with things like the Chief Firearms Office, where each province has a police officer who makes up his own, effectively, gun laws.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like the police should be enforcing the rules, and the courts should be metering out whatever the punishments are based on whatever came down from legislation, because like that's how government is, in theory, and government might work. Doesn't, but whatever. In theory, like somebody should write laws, and then somebody should enforce the laws, and then a party who is versed in those laws should ensure that justice is metered out. And those should be all separate functions by separate people.
Yeah.
So here's an interesting
Fair.
quote. It's like
I mean, that
defense
should be
lawyers
how
say
it works.
proposed. So defense lawyers say the proposed process doesn't respect the presumption of innocence. Quote: "Do we want a society where police officers are essentially charging, trying, and convicting at the side of the road, and the citizen doesn't get due process?" Quote. Said Greg Dunn, a Calgary defense lawyer, quote, "It's not the judge making the determination, it's not a jury making the determination, it's the police making the determination." Quote. Well, the breathalyzer making the determination. This is not subjective. This isn't the police officer subjectively deciding to convict or not convict. This is a breathalyzer going, you're over the limit or you're not.
Right, but in the new law in Alberta, when the breathalyzer says this driver is over the legal limit, the officer has discretion as to whether or not to lay charges against that individual. Which I kind of like the idea, because officer discretion in policing is a big deal, and that, like, there are things that go on and everything is not black and white, and officer discretion in policing is a big part of that job. The problem that I have with it is now that we have officers who go around specifically looking for drunk drivers, they can decide to do a roadside seizure, or they can decide to press criminal charges, or they can do basically whatever they want under this law. They could choose to do nothing, or they could choose to do everything. Take away the vehicle and the driver's license and impound everything and fine them and press criminal charges. And there's no consistency in how that has to be applied now.
Yeah, I don't like this whole thing, and like it's supported by MAD, like Mothers Against Drunk Driving, and
That's
because
weird.
they feel that it will this whole thing is weird. So like MAD thinks that it will unclog the court systems, allowing them to prosecute worse offenders of this, as well as it will increase sort of dollars and cents. Like it's going to increase fines on the non-prosecuted ones. Like I just don't get this whole thing.
But it also has the potential for them to just go, carry on, keep driving, drunk sir.
Right.
So it's weird that they would even be behind.
You're
that
only
at all.
slightly over.
Yeah.
It's weird that MAD got behind it. Same thing. Like this whole thing seems odd to me.
Yeah, I don't like the idea of decriminalizing drunk driving. I mean, right? Because there's like the libertarian argument and the whole like ANCAP leave me alone stuff because I'm not hurting anybody. So if I drive drunk and nobody dies, have any laws been broken?
No, but I mean, if you look at it that way,
we
though,
don't want to encourage people to drive drunk because eventually somebody will kill someone, and then it's too late for corrective measures to be taken. Right? So, I mean, like, I kind of want it to be like, leave me alone. I'm not infringing on anyone else's freedoms and enjoyment, so I haven't violated the non-aggression principle.
But the argument with that is that you potentially are a threat, and you could be then
right,
by
and
anyone that judges you as a threat.
If I'm swinging
taken out
fist and walking forward in motion, get in my way, Is it your fault or mine?
Yeah, that's the problem, right? So
Yeah, but I mean,
The way I
we
feel
have
with this
to.
one is like by being drunk on the road, like the danger.
yeah, you're a
You know,
threat, and if
you're
anyone views you as a threat, they have the right to, in a libertarian world, do something about that threat violently.
yeah.
I don't know about that. I mean, okay, if you're violating the non-aggression principle, yes, I'm agreeable to that. But is having 3 beers and then driving home violating the non-aggression principle?
No, but if you're swerving all
No,
over the
but three
road,
beers isn't going to put you over the limit either.
yeah, but if you're swerving all over the road dangerously
No,
and or
but three
potentially smashing
beers
your car
might
into people's private property, you are.
3 beers would get not me, but 3 beers could get a person to the point where a breathalyzer would tell them they're at or over the legal limit.
Yes.
I could drive home just fine after 3 beers because
Yeah,
I'm a big
but I mean-
dude and I'm not affected as easily. But that's like
Yeah, but I mean, you look at it
my
the
whole
same
point
way.
with this
Like,
is the way that this is applied is very, very poorly laid out.
oh yeah,
But to me, that's why we have a breathalyzer. Like, you know, I mean, we have there's a limit. It is
yeah,
a
it's maybe
certain
not
blood
perfect,
alcohol
but
content.
it's a
Yeah, it's like
scientific way of
here's a
measuring.
hard line. Right. You're over that you're not.
Right, and I'm agreeable to that as a concept because we need to have, in order to live in a civilized society, we need to have rules about how everyone behaves. And one of those
Yeah,
things that's
there's
commonly
something.
agreed on is one of those things that's agreed upon is that we don't drive our vehicles when we're not able to control our vehicles, right? Under the influence of whatever that is. So if I have a beer and then drive home and whatever, if I have 10 beers and then try and drive home, that's probably a much worse decision. And it's generally accepted in our society that we shouldn't do it. But just because something's generally accepted doesn't mean it's necessarily right, right? Like at one point in
Like
the United
Texas.
States, it was entirely legal to own other people. That doesn't mean it's right. It was just commonly accepted that you could.
Yeah. Luckily, the
I think
Republicans
taking the
that.
charges of taking the charges out of this is asking for trouble.
Yeah, especially when it seems like, at least in Ontario, I don't know if you guys have seen it lately, but like the increased thing about driving while under the influence of marijuana, because they've been pounding those commercials like all day, it seems.
I've not seen the marijuana thing, but I mean, I agree with Andrew
I
in
saw
that it shouldn't be. You know, I agree that it should be, you know, a scientific sort of limit, and it shouldn't be subjective to the officer that pulls the person over. But yeah, you know, you make a good point in terms of the marijuana side of things, so that's going to open up an entirely sort of you know, new
again, though,
issue
like,
is how they determine and how they control that.
yeah, and they need to figure out a scientific way, like a breathalyzer, so that they can do much the same thing. But
Right.
yeah, like it's just crazy. I mean,
All right, let's talk about planes. Time to talk about CF-18s because we aren't getting F-35s. So, as our listeners may have heard, we've decided to buy 18 gently used CF-18s from down under. The Australians are selling them because the Australians, for some reason, are buying the F-35. Backing out of after having spent billions of dollars helping the Americans develop the damn things.
well, someone had to.
For some reason, we're buying these 18 gently used Aussie jets as a stopgap due to a problem with our capabilities, which I'm not entirely clear on since we're not actively engaged in any kind of a conflict where the CF-18 that we have doesn't provide the air superiority that we need. So I'm not sure why the government has decided to spend any money at all to buy these 18 F-18s as a stopgap measure. But I do really enjoy reading the writing of Peter MacKay. As a former defense minister, he is well versed in the subject, and his writing is actually pretty good for a politician.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I guess for comments on this, I don't know how much comments there is on this. Like this whole thing is just deal in place. That deal got canceled. They put a new deal in place. That deal got canceled. Everything seems to basically just be up in the air. We comment on
Yeah.
like where are we
Yeah.
going on? Like there's nothing now.
No, there isn't. The only other thing that I'm going to bring up is that in our current era of government transparency with the Liberal Party, they've decided to change the way that they present the budget for the 18 gently used Aussie jets, because the F-35 was going to be too expensive because of the budget of these having a 45-year operational lifespan, which they don't and they won't, because that's ridiculous. So they use something called life cycle costing, which effectively artificially inflates the individual price and the contract price. It makes the jets look far more expensive than they really are, because they're projecting out over 45 years and they're going to have to be replaced and upgraded and maintained over 45 years. There's no expectation of the F-35 being in use in 45 years. That's absurd. They did not use life cycle costing for the budgets for the 18 interim F-18s from the Aussies, which I found was interesting because it's, liberal transparency at its finest. We're going to tell you that we're going to do this all in an open and democratic fashion, but we are not going to allow you to compare apples to oranges. We're going to use two totally separate metrics and tell you that these ones are a good deal. Trust us.
Yeah, well, the number is different than the other number.
Yeah.
Sorry, say that again. Something about the other number?
I said the number is lower than the other number.
So it's a good deal.
That's right. The number for a totally different thing is totally different. That's true.
Yeah. But it's a lower, totally different number.
Yeah, we shouldn't be spending $500 million on 18 more jets. We have...
Are we going to at least be allowed to whip them out?
No, but we have a serviceable and adequate fleet of F-18s that we should be replacing with F-35s because we've already paid for the damn things.
Yeah, but now the
But, hey, it
Aussies
was
are
only
going to get
9
our
million.
new jets, and we're getting their old jets. Yeah.
All right, I got nothing else for that one. We got another follow-up story, though. We have talked at length about Lindsay Shepard, the Laurier teaching assistant master's student who has been accused of being a white supremacist, neo-Nazi, hate speech loving bigot. I just wanted to bring up that Rex Murphy has a really good article in the National Post for the week of December 27th. It's still in the news. The media is trying to get rid of it because now everything's come out. The university has basically gone off and done their own thing, and they were completely overreacting to something that happened. And Rambukkana, the professor that was in charge of the program that Shepard was TAing, was effectively making things up and had his little kangaroo court, which was recorded and published. And I thoroughly hope that this stays in the media because I would like to see the university system as it is crumble.
Yeah. Sounds fair.
Yeah, no arguments there.
Yeah, so still in the news. I still don't particularly care for Miss Shepard because I still think that she's too liberal for my taste. But hey, you know what? If
Maybe this will sour her though, and like she'll come
if
onto
the
our
media
side.
and the left, if the media and the rabid leftists are going to call her a Nazi, maybe she can just adopt the label, because eventually these people are going to call people Nazis often enough that they're going to start being right. And I kind of hope this is the beginning of it, because I would really like to see the university system in our country crumble.
It definitely seems that she has, at least the fact that, those that are coming to her defense are from the right. As Andrew said, even though we don't agree with her politics, it's the right that's coming to her defense, in terms of her free speech and her ability to make claims and things like that. And so I do think it's been an eye opener for her and likely others that are following the story.
I hope that a number of university students are aware of what is going on. I hope that other people that are preparing for university see this sort of thing and they consider alternative forms of education. So the government-sponsored monopoly on post-secondary education, not getting into the whole debt cycle with the way that the universities are price fixing, and not getting into the government monopoly on who can run a university and how they have to be run, and the fact that it's tax dollars that are subsidizing universities, and then tax dollars that are subsidizing tuitions, which are further subsidizing universities. I hope that just the mechanics of this interaction with how this particular TA, a master's student, is being treated by her university for having the gall to present both sides of an argument, open up the eyes of people that are considering university. I know, why would you want to present your students with all of the facts and allow them to have a conversation and come to their own conclusion?
Yeah.
I mean, she sounds like she's basically Hitler.
Probably even worse.
I hope that there's more follow-up to this. I would like to continue to see this sort of thing in the news. All right, let's talk about our new national hero. This is somebody that I think I want to see printed on money whenever we do our next run of plastic bills. We should get Como printed on, I don't know, 20s. Maybe we could make a $24 bill and we could print them on the 2-4.
Nice. That would be awesome.
Damn, that's the one right there.
This is pretty good. So there's a New Brunswick man, somebody Como. What's his name? I don't know. Last name's Como. That's the important bit. He got
Mr. Como.
Mr. Como.
Gerard
I'm sure
Como.
Is it Gerard? Perfect. So way back in 2012, he was issued a $300 ticket for smuggling contraband out of Quebec and into New Brunswick. The contraband in question was beer. Pardon me, speaking of beer. The contraband in question was beer. What he had done was violated one section in Canada's Constitution Act of 1867. That's right. By bringing beer from Quebec into New Brunswick, he had violated the Canadian Constitution. This, ladies and gentlemen, is what's wrong with our government in a nutshell.
No, sorry. I want to just he argued the prohibition against transporting booze violated 121 of the Constitution of 1867.
Oh, did I have that misunderstood?
You're slightly backwards, yeah. Not that the transporting violated, the prohibition violated the Constitution of 1867.
That's too bad. I am sad that I had that backwards. I was really hoping that was what was going on, was that this was a charter violation.
Well, he's saying that the prohibition is a charter violation.
Yeah. It's a violation against him rather than him violating it.
Yes.
Okay. I had it backwards. Lots of beer. I am excited to see that 5 years
So-
later that this guy is still fighting them over $300. This
As
this
he
gentleman
should, though,
is my
because that's
hero.
ridiculous. Because, I mean, I imagine this guy goes back and forth across the border to get cheap beer fairly often.
I'm aware of a lot of people. I regularly work in the National Capital region. A large number of people in that area that regularly drive into Quebec to buy beer at Costco and then drive back into Ontario.
So let me ask you guys this question. Based on this premise, it almost seems like taxation differences will affect consumer trends. So it seems like he's willing to drive and purchase outside of his province solely to avoid paying additional taxation. Now,
It does seem remarkably
what
like
happens
that.
Now, what happens when we add taxation onto businesses, let's say, for example, a carbon tax, or let's say, an increased minimum wage, have the same effect of driving business to outside of the province or country that is affected by it, would it?
You might
It would
be onto
stand to
something.
reason in my mind,
Yeah.
but
Oh,
I
jeez,
have
we're
said
in a lot of
before-
trouble then, guys.
Yeah, we
I've
use
said before,
facts
and
and
I will say
logic,
again
not feels.
yeah, taxation is theft.
Jeez, I gotta plan my whole year out differently now.
Got to live closer to the border. Although you got to watch it though when you go do a beer run into Quebec. Make sure you lock your car door and don't
Oh.
sing.
It's great
that
fishing
could-
in Quebec, though.
Fuck Quebec. I really need to get more Letterkenny drops. I don't have. I don't have one for that.
That would be a good one.
Quebec.
Quebec.
I don't know. I wish Mr. What's his nuts there good luck with this. I think it's great that he is taking the government.
Gerard Como.
Yeah,
Our hats off to
I,
you, sir.
I wonder
Yeah,
if anyone
I,
is getting busted going the other way. Like,
I
you know,
doubt
like if
it,
somebody
but-
from Quebec
No, but-
is going across the border to buy more expensive beer, like, where's that guy's ticket? Because I'm sure it's happened at some point. Because like the beer store on this side of the line doesn't have the brand that he wants, so he drives 5 minutes across the border to get the one that he wants and spends a couple of bucks more because it's the one he wants. Where's that guy getting a ticket? Or they let it slide because he's paying more tax?
Yeah, I don't
Yes.
know.
Because, you know, you got to enforce laws fairly, right?
Well, I mean, we don't though. Look at bread, milk, and eggs. Just like we have a dairy cartel, we have an egg cartel, we have the wheat board, we have a government-backed monopoly on alcohol. Effectively, all of the major breweries in Canada are owned by one of three companies. The
We have a
Well,
prime
beer
minister and a
distribution-
finance minister that have both violated the ethics commission.
yeah, like
Sorry, I'm just assuming we're going through like random violations that are, have no consequences whatsoever.
Yeah.
I am curious to see what happens when we decriminalize and start to regulate the marijuana. Because if one province does it differently than the next, I would like to see if we start building
yeah.
additional marijuana cartels, since we already have the licensed producer scheme.
Oh yeah, you're going to end up getting like a fine for transporting marijuana from one province to the other, and then we'll have pot smugglers.
Well, we'll have different pot smugglers. That's the
Yes.
point that I'm making, is we already have pot cartels and we'll just have different pot cartels and pot smugglers.
Yeah.
Will be though. It seems like the different ones will just be more expensive, less effective pot. And I feel like that's just gonna that's a business model that's just gonna die out on its own.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with you, but I expect that we're going to start to see this with the marijuana issue as the provinces try to figure out how to regulate and sell and tax it. So we can't figure out how to do it for booze. We haven't been able to do it in almost 100 years in booze. When was prohibition? 1921.
Sure.
So
Like,
the only two models that I've seen so far, Ontario and BC, but I haven't heard of the others, like in terms of specifics.
well, Ontario and BC are trying to figure out who can get to the bottom first, and Alberta's in a close third there. Well, I guess Alberta and Quebec, because they're the next two most socialist provinces in the country. I'm still holding out hope for Alberta, though. They might be able to turn it around after the next election.
Seems to have
One
enough
can hope.
discontent.
All right, let's do the last one. In in news that shocks no one, it's from the Hill Times. Trudeau was voted the most valuable politician in 2017. Of course he was, because he's the prime minister. Why would he not be the most valuable politician of 2017? He's paid the most. He's in the news the most. It stands to reason that he would be the most valuable. So there's a ranking system that they come up with for all of the politicians across all of the parties. The obviously the shiniest of ponies comes out on top. Taking very bottom place, though, is his good friend, the finance minister, Bill Morneau. And I'm surprised that Morneau came in last. I really am.
Yeah, Morneau came first in the least valuable politician category.
Yeah, he's still number one. He's just the last.
In terms of the top four Ps were the Foreign Affairs Minister, Krista Freelander, Andrew Scheer, and NDP Nathan Cullen. Interesting that Singh didn't make it in the top four at all. The current leader of the NDP.
We've talked about this before. I'm not surprised by that. Nobody knows who he is yet. He is not noteworthy at this point. I expect that will change over time, but
yeah, I still stand by Canadians typically don't vote for change. Like it usually takes an election or two for any leader, and typically it takes an election or two for any leader to kind of establish themselves in Canada.
Yeah,
we'll see.
Going out in the best cabinet ministers, I'm a little bit surprised with some of these. Indigenous Services with Jane Philpott, Public Safety Minister Ralph Goodale, and Environment Minister Climate Change Barbie McKenna. I am surprised that those are the top three cabinet positions. I am, however, not at all
the only ones that are recognizable.
I mean, isn't this kind of just like everyone just sitting around in a room, like just stroking each other's cocks? Like that's what this whole thing sounds like.
This is politicians doing a popularity contest, but it's a fun popularity contest because some of our favorite MPs make the bottom of the list for the least important members of the Liberal Party. Morneau is obviously the least valuable, but in other cabinet level positions, status of women minister, Gavin's favorite MP, Marion Monsef. Oh. One of my favorite MPs, the House Leader, Bardish Chagger, the person we have no idea why she's the House Leader other than she's a woman and a visible minority. Not that those things matter to Liberals. And Crown Indigenous Northern Affairs Minister Carolyn Bennett.
Future leader of the Liberal Party.
Oh yeah, she's going to run for PM someday. We all screwed.
Yeah. Absolutely, she is next in line after Trudeau.
Yeah, well, what's she? She's less than 30. She's 26 years old or something. She's never had a real job.
Yeah.
She was a student in Waterloo, but she's a woman and she's a visible minority. So she holds a cabinet position, and within her first year in government, got moved to the House Leader position.
Yeah.
Where's my button? Like, what the hell?
Yeah.
I got nothing for that. I got Marion. At least these are the bottom three ministers.
No, but I mean, even like the top ones and the bottom ones, it's like, to me, this is the list of kind of like worst ministers. And it basically, it's the ones that everybody knows about because they've screwed up their own mandates in some way or another. These ones are the ones, like, these are the 5 that everybody knows screwed up their mandates the least, and then these ones screwed up their mandates the worst.
Yeah, I don't know. I still think this whole thing is just a big joke.
It is
Why
a
do
big
you
joke, but
bother?
hey, it's government. Government is kind of a big joke. So,
well, yeah, but like,
let's do rapid fire
hilarious,
feedback. We've got an
Before we-
iTunes review. Oh, before we do that, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. Whatever. Let's wrap her up.
Okay. Yeah, whatever. Rapid fire feedback. This comes to us from, I question the iTunes profile. Even better, Andrew. No, this was not me, and I'm not sure I agree that there is a better Andrew out there, but all right. From Even Better, Andrew. 5 stars.
Stands
Awesome
there
show.
must be.
Strongly disagree. The review is, love the show, really informative, awesome to have an unbiased Canadian view on the news. Gavin needs to drink some scotch or something else expensive. I like where even better Andrew's headed is with that. Gavin, drink expensive scotch. That's a great idea.
all right, I'll see what
I am not sure that we have an
I'll keep
unbiased
figuring it out.
Canadian view, though. I would actually say that we have a. Huh?
Find the unbiased review. That's what I want to know.
Yeah, I don't think we present an unbiased review. An unbiased.
At least we're honest about that, though.
Right. We are honest about our biases. We understand that we have them, and we are not a news show. We're a comedy show, really.
Yeah, and generally we will point out our bias.
What's I say? Like we are more
in
ethical
hilarious
than
ways.
mainstream media, but we are not.
We, the
We
media
are not the news. We are not reporters. We are not. We make assessments and political commentary on things that are going on in the current events. We are incredibly biased. We're also very funny, and some of us are very attractive.
Yes.
Nothing. Nobody. Okay, fine.
We let you have that one. I mean, after the comments
All right,
about beards and everything last time.
Beer is luxurious. I think that's all I got. We're probably up there for time. Let's wrap this up. Gavin, where can everybody find you on the internet?
Best place to find me is on Instagram at urbex_GTA, or next Saturday, if you want to see me in person, I'll be at the La Salette Gun Show in La Salette, Ontario, helping out with the CCFR there. So come on by, buy that gun that you didn't get at Christmas. It'll be a good time.
Is this a calendar?
Marty, where can everybody find the show?
CFR.
No, I'm officially now a CCFR field officer, so I'll be there working the table. I'm gonna try and get some calendars to sell. Try to get some calendars to sell, but I'll just be there like hawking memberships to everyone. Informing them of the stupidity of the government.
All right, and if anyone wants to contact the show, they can visit us at CanadianPatriotPodcast.com. Like us on Facebook at Facebook.com/Canadian Patriot Podcast. Feedback at CanadianPatriotPodcast.com, and let us know what you think.
Right on. Matt, do you have anything to plug?
No, not tonight.
All right. As always, my name is Andrew. You can find me at RagnarokTackle.ca. Come by first aid supplies, bandages, tourniquets, all that good stuff. Because I keep arguing with idiots on the internet. Tampons do not belong in your first aid kit. They belong in your girlfriend's purse. I have to apologize to Rod Giltack. I'm afraid we could not fit him into the show this evening. Very full topic segment, as you can see. And for all of our listeners out there in podcast land, I would like to remind you that you are the true North, strong and free.